Hey everybody, welcome to the Blue Chip Podcast by Fans for Fans. This is your host Cody Potter. How y'all doing today? So, with the 71st pick in the NFL draft, the Washington Commanders went the route that I really felt that they were going to go. They went the wide receiver route. Unlike the past two seasons, they did not take a project player, man. This is a player that we know exactly what we're going to get right here. So I'm going to take you to the big board real quick, and then I'll get you back to some Antonio Williams cut-ups. The consensus board, they had him graded at 69, so right around the grade where he went, pick 71. There's a couple different life cycles for Antonio Williams, man. Playing outside at Clemson in 2024. 11 touchdowns, really was high on my list coming into the season this year, man. And honestly, that was, I think, the case with a lot of players that were coming out of Clemson, whether it be Peter Woods, whether it be, the edges and just Avion Terrell, Antonio Williams. I'm really high on one of their running backs, too, that used to play wide receiver, who's a guy that I think the Commanders have met with about 4 or 5 times. So there's a lot of things that were, in play with the Clemson Tigers last year. The quarterback play was definitely not what we thought we were going to get. I mean, I remember really early in the process last year when I was scouting, I was watching Cade Klubnik from the 2024 tape. I really thought this was going to be a guy that was going to excel a lot more, and Antonio Williams was one of my kind of like sleeper Heisman kind of candidates, man, especially when I heard they were moving him into the slot, and they were, I was like, man, if they're going to mix and match this guy, there was a lot of real excitement for me, because while he does win vertically, the route running ability and the things like that, I was like, man, they add the slot to this guy's calling card, getting him more touches, getting him more yards after the catch and things like that. I really thought Clemson was about to have a different year, man, and I think everybody did. T.J. Parker, Peter Woods. We've talked about the guys, man. Clemson had a lot of dudes on their roster, man. There was a reason that everybody in the AP polls preseason had Clemson, as a potential, college football playoff, national title contender. It did not work out that way. And you've still seen it with T.J. Parker, a round one player, talent-wise that went early, day 2. Still finished the season with round 1 grades. Peter Woods, same thing. Blake Miller, and just, now you got Antonio Williams, and you're getting these guys. They're falling in the draft a little bit because of from where you would have thought they were going to go preseason early in the year. Just what you can never really, from one season to the next in college football, man. I think LSU was really just, one, they were in their bag that game. LSU really came out to make a statement that game. A lot of people can say whatever about the matchup between Mansour and Lane, but there were a lot of bad throws. There was a lot of open field for Antonio Williams early in that game, and often. A lot of throws were missed. One of Mansour Lane's picks was, it was a throw where he was playing that match. He was playing zone match. He was about 10 yards behind Antonio Williams. Antonio Williams found the spot in the zone. He made his cut, and Cade Klubnik overthrew him. There's a lot of things that went into this. So one of, Mansour Lane highlights is actually something that you watch Antonio Williams and you're like, man, that cut, man, he felt the hole in the zone, really split the defense between the first and second levels. Got enough depth to clear the linebacker for Cade Klubnik to put the ball a little bit over and drop it into the bucket, and just it sailed on him, and that just kind of was the narrative of the season, man. Realistically, this is a guy that really cleaned up his drop rate in 2025 from 2024. There was a higher drop percentage. Some of that is due to outside. Some of that was due to just other players making plays, man. I thought the cornerbacks that he went up against in 2025, when he was lining up on the outside, a lot of the cornerbacks that were in the ACC that got drafted in 2025, in the 2025 draft class, they were playing really good football, man. But we've seen this guy go up against like Chandler Rivers, a guy that I'm really high on, that I'm still kind of surprised is available in this draft for the grade that I had on him, which was pretty much early second round. I didn't even think he would be available to us in the third round, and here he is, going on day 3. And this is just the way that goes in the draft. There's a lot of height, weight, speed, discrepancies and things, and the NFL is, they're very, very big. Scouts fall in love with these guys that look really, really good coming off the bus, and sometimes they're not the best players. I know that there's a desire all the time to get the 6'2", 6'3", 220-pound wide receiver. And I'm just going to tell you, in the last 30 years, that has never really panned out for the Washington Commanders, the Washington Redskins, and growing up. So again, there's a lot of things that go into this stuff, and I'm very, very excited for what Antonio Williams can be here, man. This is a guy that can win vertically. He can win with his route nuance, where he chips off his breaks and things like that. This is a very, very good player in the NFL draft, man. And again, this is not the Luke McCaffrey, guy that played quarterback and then, switched over to wide receiver his last year. This is not the Jalen Lane where it's smaller guy, Virginia Tech, you see the route nuances and things like that. You see what he can do with the ball in his hands after the catch. Versatile playmaker who you knew could give you really, really good impact on special teams early, which Jalen Lane did. There were a lot of comps to like Terry McLaurin with Jalen Lane in that department, where it was best special teamer to come out, in the draft. What can he give you a wide receiver? Terry McLaurin, eclipsed all the expectations that you had for that guy, coming out of Ohio State. But, Terry McLaurin also, was a very, very good touchdown getter, especially his last year in Ohio State. And, when I look at Antonio Williams, a guy that really could have came out last year, and I think would have done himself some favors at least financially, if he had came out in last year's class. I think he would have gone a lot higher in last year's class than he ended up going in this year's class. To get him at pick 71, a guy that has definitely showed you can win vertically inside or outside. Really, really refined route running. Solid hands. I think his hands are really, really good. I think they're even a little bit underrated. I mean, I understand the drops and things like that you get with this guy, but again, man, there's a lot of players, man. There's a lot of players that are left in this draft, for day 3. Having 2 6th-round picks, a 5th-round pick, a 7th-round pick. Maybe there's some wheeling and dealing that goes on. I already, like I already said about Chandler Rivers, I really never would have even expected him to be available. Jalen Husky was a guy that I really, really liked for us day 3, just going off of consensus grading and things like that. But that's not how the draft goes, man. That's why grading is very, very indicative. I had a much higher grade on Jalen Husky. I thought he was a day 2 pick, late day 2 pick, where he actually went, and here we go. He went day 2. So again, it only takes one team to fall in love. And then, height, weight, speed, it factors into a lot of these things. So when you look at Chandler Rivers, 5'10", $185, a little bit smaller on the build for what you want from the prototypical, size for a cornerback, that's a guy I'd make a move up for. I think we might be a little bit more active. We see the Chargers and teams like that. I mean, they are being very, very active. The Chargers have been accumulating a lot of picks in this day 3, and I've said it multiple times, man, and I'm looking at these players that are still available on these boards. I can actually even go over that right now. It's just there are a lot of really, really, really talented players that are left on this board, on this draft. We'll just get in here to PFF, and we'll just kind of go down, get kind of back into this. PFF, let's get back to the opening screen. I like PFF. Their format's very, very user-friendly. I'm not the most technically sound human being when it comes to, computers and things like that. So, like, my visual quality and my take and things like that while I'm working all this is sometimes it's pretty hard when you're doing this by yourself, just to kind of scroll down and see all the things that you're trying to, accomplish while you're trying to also talk ball. It's like focusing on 3 different things at one time. It can make it hard, but at the end of the day, Deshaun Stribling was a player that I very, very much tried to throw out there, as he was going to go early. He ended up being the first pick in the 3rd round, and that's a player that Kyle Shanahan technically wins with. So let's see if we can find these. I'm not looking for day 2. Best remaining ahead of day 3. Man, day 3 is where GMs make their money, and this is where the difference that separates you. I mean, Jermon McCoy, we know about the knee. There's probably going to be another surgery to be had. Skylar Bell is a guy that I talked about yesterday, a guy that I really liked. I think he had every opportunity to go to a different transfer to a different program. He didn't. He stayed loyal. It's probably cost him some money, but I think that's going to be a guy in the NFL. I mean, he can win vertically. He can win outside. He might not. He's a little bit on the Antonio Williams side, where it's 5'11", not 6 foot plus, 220 pounds, a little bit smaller build in the 185, 190. Again, this is an actual ball player, man. Skylar Bell was a guy that I would have been very, very elated for with this pick. But then again, that was more under the understanding that I didn't really think Antonio Williams would be there, man. I really, really think Antonio Williams is a guy that I thought was going to go a little bit earlier, compared to maybe what the consensus board had. And then, I have mocked Denny Dennis Sutton to us multiple times. That's a guy that I really don't expect it to make it there. Not with his flash, his athletic markers and things like that. Mike Washington and his vision is a guy that I think is probably getting slept on, along with Jonah Coleman, who I know is probably going to be higher on this list. And then Connor Liu is a guy that I've mocked us multiple times with our need for center, at least long term for the developmental upside part of this. He's a guy with the size and the movement skills that you really, really want. I personally got, it was really, really nice for me. My number one Commanders fit for offensive center was the top center that ended up going in the draft. He was a guy that I think I had Logan Jones a little bit higher than the other guys. Whilst I do like Connor Liu, I did like Sam Hecht. I liked Slaughter, the guard center that went to the Los Angeles Chargers. Another guy that I had Logan Jones a tick above, and it's not due to helmet scouting, but when I look. Iowa is just one of them programs that you trust. You trust the coaching. They are very, very. They excel in bigger physical offensive linemen. Pat Coogan is a guy. He has made all the calls for Indiana, and in that offense, that's what I'm liking to see. So Sam Hecht is still available to us. He is a guy that I am very, very, very high on. I actually grade him a little higher than Connor Liu. Connor Liu, I think, is a little bit more consensusly higher graded. Sam Hecht, when I watched Kansas State, man, there were three things in Kansas State that really, really stood out for me. It was the back-end play with VJ Payne, the safety play, the middle of that defense as far as the linebackers and interior defensive front, and then Sam Hecht. Those were the guys that really, really stood out for me for Kansas State. The quarterback play just wasn't up to snub. That's something that just happens in college football. But those were the positions when I watched Kansas State that got me very, very excited. And you just saw NFL level talent along that line. Jonah Coleman, we've talked about. So as we continue to go down here, we're talking Claiborne, Crownover. Yeah, man, we're gonna have some talent, man. There's, like I've said this, Brandon Thompson is a guy that I've talked about, man. The 4.2 speed, CJ Daniels, Miami. That's a guy that I really, really love. I had a feeling he was going to go down in this area. Keon Black is a guy that went in the range where I felt he should go. He is definitely a Kyle Shanahan one cut and go, just wears on you over time. Maybe not the biggest guy, maybe not the fastest guy. He's definitely not a long strider when you look at the way he takes his steps. But man, he's just a guy that continues to fight. Plow yards, doesn't fumble the ball. Jalen Kilgore is a guy that I know that consensusly has a lot of hype, a lot of visits and things like that. This is why you do your homework, man. The draft falls like this every year, man. Guys get drafted. The tight ends were going like crazy yesterday. I called the Eli Stowers pick to the Eagles yesterday on my pod. That's what Howie Roseman does, man. Howie Roseman I told you it was very clear. I was like, Howie Roseman goes off that consensus board, and I was like, man, I just felt like with where he was in the range, I was like, man, Eli Stowers is going to be available to him. He's going to start the tight end run, and it did. Tight end after tight end after tight end went after Eli Stowers, and of course, it was the Philadelphia Eagles. It always plays out this way. It's every year for me, man. Like, I watch Howie Roseman. I like there's so many times where I'm just like, dude, this dude just like is like dialed into everything that I discuss on this pod. And that's why they do really, really good, and that's why they are at the top of the NFC East, and atop the NFC with what I would consider not the best quarterback play in our division. I know what Jalen Hurts offers you with the legs, but as far as like the things that he misses on tape from the reading and processing department, let's be real, man. That roster, there's a reason why that team is loaded like they are. The Slim Reaper is one of the highest graded wide receivers I've ever scouted. Just one of my favorite players that's ever come through the draft. AJ Brown, very similarly, man. Like when I was watching that the old Miss tape back in that day, AJ Brown was just a guy that I absolutely loved. my best friend was very, very high on DK Metcalf, and I mean, he was higher on DK Metcalf way through the process before anybody else was really, really on him. And it was so funny, man, because we would watch Ole Miss together, and I was like, man, AJ Brown, dude, that dude's a dog. And he's like, I love DK, dude, I love DK. And it just turned out that both of them guys ended up being really, really amazing football players in this league. Just both physical, absolute physical dogs at the catch point, man, and just explosive burst, the run after catch, just everything, man. Michael Taft is a guy that I am super, super high on. I think that was a day one starter at the safety position, a former walk-on from Texas University, man. I've mocked him almost every time in my 5th round to us. So the fact that there is no longer no Jalen Husky in the back end of the draft, as far as the consensus grades are going. There's no more me stealing Jalen Husky to the Commanders in the 7th round, which I knew was never going to happen. I just kept drafting him here because I just kept getting him. And then Pat Coogan, Caden Curry is a guy, may not have the measurable marker, but that is a guy that can come in and play day one snaps and have an impact, whether it's setting the edge in the run department or getting after the quarterback, man. He might not ever be a 12 sack a year guy, but that is a guy that consistently can hover around that 8 to 10 sacks, especially if he's a starter. Somebody goes down due to injuries, and Caden Curry is your backup. He's going to be a hard guy to get your spot back from, man. And you never want to see somebody lose their job to injury, but he is going to be one of them guys that he's going to work his ass off every day and just continue to get it, man. Cole Wisniewski, the safety from Texas Tech, their wide receiver went very shortly after we picked Antonio Williams, and that's a guy that I think has some really, really good development traits. I think he lacks the second gear explosiveness when it comes to after the catch. Some guys just top out in their route. When they get the ball in their hands, sometimes that's the last bit of juice that they have. They run as hard as they can to get open and get their break and make their cut. Sometimes they just don't have the agility after that to, continue that gear and process that speed through their break. That was kind of how I felt about the player from Texas Tech at the wide receiver position. But he's going to be a really good player. And then, I think it would be a really cool story to see Lorenzo Styles, Jr. come maybe to the Washington Commanders late in the NFL draft. With the time speed that he had. Skylar Gill Howard, that's going to be a guy from the Texas Tech Raiders that I think makes some noise at the back end of this draft. When you were watching Skylar Gill Howard, man, he commanded the huddle, and you could tell he was the leader in the locker room for the Texas Tech Raiders early in the season this year. Went down with the injury, and for everything I've talked about Lee Hunter on this show, man, Skylar Gill Howard was a guy that was very, very much making his presence felt, man. There's going to be guys on this 3rd round. 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round. These teams are going to get starters in this class if they stay true to the boards. Don't necessarily draft off the consensus, but look exactly around the league for what they are missing on their roster. If they have a need, this is where you go get your guys with needs. And there are guys throughout this draft that are going to fill needs, whether it be interior defensive line, whether it's interior offensive line. There are some really, really good centers that are left in this class. There's probably a couple developmental tackles that could really, really realistically come in and, be your backup swing tackle, maybe even fill in some guard due to injury and things like that. I've talked about C.J. Daniels, and Brendan Thompson is a guy that I think in 3 years could, if he really, really develops and works at the nuances of his route game, I think that's a guy with that 4.2 speed. He plays with that 4.2 speed, and you watch this guy eat up grass very, very quickly on the field. And if these deep backs do not have that type of gear or recovery speed, you let that guy get even with you, he's leaving. And Brendan Thompson is a guy that can high point the ball and catch the ball. I don't think he's the most natural hands catcher. You do see him let the ball into his body. I think that's consistently a narrative with guys that win with constant speed, that level of elite level separation speed, basically track speed. That guy is a 100-meter terror if it came down to the track and field game. Brendan Thompson is a guy, I think if he works on his hands, I think he works on his routes, man. This is a guy that could realistically, maybe year 2, year 3, maybe start to show some of that Deshaun Jackson, Tyreek Hill, where it's, I beat you so bad with the long game where you give me that type of separation off the line, I take a 2-step hitch, catch that ball and, maybe do some things after the catch. We've seen him do that at Mississippi State. They used him very much like that. I think this is a guy that can make an impact on the field, especially, like I said, if he continues to work on the way that he, pre-snap, man, there's a lot of things with receivers that you have to look at pre-snap for, in college, man. When you play cornerback, man, you're always looking for a tell. does the guy come up and like grab his gloves, twist his wrist or something like that to kind of like reset his gloves, pre-snap? Does he look like he's digging into his break, like to his get off a little bit more from one snap to the next? Where okay, he's coming out to block. He's not as loaded, into his stance, pre-snap, or I saw him give that little tell. You grabbed the face mask, kind of buckled it up, or kind of just did something with his wrist. You see a lot of tells with wide receivers pre-snap when a cornerback's watching a guy come out. Man, maybe he comes out of that huddle with a little bit more juice or something like that. Like I said, he loads into his stance a little bit more. Like, I'm coming off this ball. This play is designed for me. Whatever it is, man. There's a lot of tells that when Brennan Thompson gets those little nuances in his game cleaned up, there's the sky's the limit realistically for him, man. And that's what I'm saying. There's so many things that go into scouting, man, pre and post snap, that when you just watch, if you like, a lot of fans, we just watch these games, and it's so crazy to just, as a scout, I love to watch the game flow of the game. But when I go back and I watch these guys and I come out of huddles when I know what the play is going to be, I'm watching the game for the second and third time. It's like, and I'm watching, highlighting one player, so it's my eyes are constantly following one number around or two numbers around because they're on the same side of the field, so I can kind of do work, as the wide receiver comes out of the screen early in the play. Then you get the all 22s and you really get to highlight just snap after snap after snap with no commercials, no intervals, no nothing like that, and you just get to see it. Runs out of a snap and then he lines up same way. Oh, he's getting the ball this play. I know this play's a pass play. You learn a lot about a wide receiver, and you learn a lot about cornerbacks and things like that, pre and post snap, the communicational things and things that you're looking for. So again, there's a lot that goes into scouting, and like I said, there's a lot of things that Brennan Thompson can do pre-snap that is going to make his game go to a completely different level if he really works on it. And dude, a good wide receiver coach, you get into the NFL and it's like, hey, dude, a cornerback in the NFL is going to look at him, or in college, I'm sure they've done it, or in practice, and it's going to be like, dude, stop twisting your wrist, or stop loading into your stance when you're on this side because you're giving it away that you're about to go on a go route, or it's like, hey, you're sitting in that lazy stance. I know it's literally just a like snap, step back, get the ball. You're giving a couple little tells away. Brennan Thompson cleans those things up. I think the sky is the limit for him and his speed, because when he comes out of the huddle every way the same time, sits down into his route and then just gets it. I mean, he doesn't need a load up on the speed, man. This isn't a guy that just, can't get off his first step and then not make up ground. I mean, every step Brennan Thompson is coming into a different gear. It is pure acceleration all the way down the field. He doesn't even need to give away any of them tells and load up and anything like that. Like, that guy is going to blow by most defenders every time, or they're going to give him a ton of cushion and he can just run 10 and stop, and that is going to be money for him when he learns how to like just excel at the nuances of like breaking down into his cut, not really selling it, getting his shoulders over his feet, getting into a bad position. When he learns how to chop that route and just break it down and then cut, and the ball is on him and he can put his hands away and trust his hands away from his body and come back to the ball, there's going to be a lot of plays and yards after catch that are available to him going forward, man. Sam Heck, quarterback on the offensive line, man, just knows how to make the calls. Really good size, movement skills, things like that, man. Trust me, there's a lot of really talented players that are coming out in this day 3. So again, man, we're very excited to see where these guys live their dream. This is a dream come true for a lot of these guys, man. Teams really went a long way in improving. The Giants, again, second, third round, killed it. The NFC East is having themselves a day. The Jets, the Cleveland Browns, I mean, for everything that they need, I'm very thankful. Picking Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, at the back end of the second round, I mean, that was a guy that I had graded round 1, I mean, lock, and just I could not believe that I could continue to see him there all the way through the second round. Kyle Lewis is a guy, undersized linebacker, could really play the nickel. I mean, This is a guy that's going to be an impact player, whether it be on special teams, whether it be lined up. It's going to be one of those situations again. Maybe he doesn't start the season for a team, and then next thing you know, somebody gets banged up for a week, and then it's going to be really hard to get this guy off the field with his skill set. Deion Burks, another wide receiver, Elijah Surratt, complete technician, is going to be a guy that's going to get meaningful snaps in the NFL year 1, year 2, year 3. Bryce Lance, the elite outside game speed. there's wide receivers, there's edges, there's some really really good players, and then Keontae Scott as a Miami U fan, man, like this is a guy that I damn sure did not expect to be available day 3. I don't expect him to last much longer, in this draft. I think within the first 5 to 10 picks, he's gone. So again, there's a ton of talent in this draft. I'm very, very excited to see the way that this board continues to fall. I don't really have the time today to get into, winners and losers from last night. I just kind of tried to, throw a little refresher into a couple NFC East teams because I always follow them. Like I said, I like what the Browns did. But it's very easy to like what teams do that have a lot of variations of picks and go a lot of different ways and clean up a lot of things that they lost in free agency. So it's very, very easy when a team makes 5 picks in the top 100 to kind of like what they did. Ultimately, it's about translation for these guys and schematical fits. It's getting value with your picks. And like I said, when it comes to the Jets and the Browns, I think they did that very, very much. And they're teams that needed to do it. I loved what the Houston Texans did. They lost. They lost Tim Settle to us in free agency, man, and then they come out in round 2 and they get Caden McDonald, a guy that was a first-round lock for me. One of the only first-round locks that I have for the interior defensive tackle position. I mean, I was high on Lee Hunter. Thought that he should have been graded out there. Maybe the testing numbers didn't really come back to the vertical and things like that, but I didn't care about any of that on tape. Disruptive, gets sideline to sideline, and just a guy that can two gap and eat up the space, and then a guy that can shoot the gap into one gap and can play scheme diverse. And Lee Hunter was a guy. Caden McDonald, same thing. I know what I'm getting from that guy in the run stopping department early. Can one gap it, can two gap it, can do both. And then, has the explosion to, really get off and get after the quarterback too. So again, man, like I said, man, there's value throughout this draft. Everybody talks about this draft being a weaker draft class because of maybe the top end talent. Well, we're past that now, and there are a lot of guys that have grades that are going to go a lot lower than where they should. Jermod McCoy is going to get a shot. I mean, he's not going to last long at this point. You completely throw out the medicals at this point. You're the first contract, the rookie deal. You're going to get a hell of a football player when this guy is healthy and on the field. His testing numbers are amazing. His height, weight, speed, the man press coverage tape is there. This guy is going to get locked up pretty quick. So again, from the Blue Chip Podcast, man, just talking about the draft. This is draft weekend. This is where all the chaos happens. This is where all the magic happens for all these guys. I'm excited that it's getting done today. It's 3 days for a culmination of a year's worth of work. Like I said, I'm already on to the 2027 tape, so probably within the next 3 to 4 days, I will be getting out, my look-aheads for the 2027 class. I've really, really been working into that. I've kind of previewed it into discussing some of the prospects that are available to us in this class. From what I'm seeing, I'm doing a ton of work on the quarterbacks. I always start there. Defensive backs are always kind of last for me because that's the position that I played. It's the position that I loved. It's the easiest one for me to scout because I can scout it throughout scouting all my wide receivers, and it's very easy for me with defensive backs. I mean, I have certain markers that I just look for. It's the feet, the hips, the eyes, the hands. It's are you grabby or are you not? It's very easy to take the note when you're watching the wide receivers. Are they grabby? Are you a man corner? Are you grabby? It's going to happen. Are you consistently grabbing, or are you panicking at the catch point? Or are you right where you need to be at the catch point and you're panicking because you just don't maybe trust your skill set yet? Something that needs to be refined from a technical standpoint. Just putting the back of the hand on a guy instead of putting the hand out and then getting a little bit grabby just because you see the ball and you're getting excited for it getting there. There's a lot of technical standpoints that come into scouting a cornerback, but like for me, it's very easy. It's a position that I played, so it's one of the easier positions for me to break down. It's one of the hardest positions to scout. It's the position that I specialize in, and it's I trust me, I still have hits, I still have misses. That's why I'm so high on Chandler Rivers. He's so clean. Just reminds me of Devin Witherspoon. He's not that level of prospect, but I mean, at the end of the day, if he played on a different program, he would be for me. But he's here day 3, and I had a much higher grade on Richard Sherman. I had a second-round grade on Richard Sherman, who was a converted wide receiver, ended up going in the 5th round. I said that was the seal of the draft back then, and then he ended up being a Hall of Fame player. But he also went to the team that played the exact schematical skill set for the way that he needed to do that cover 3 deep shell, playing outside, basically playing that deep third. Nothing is going to get over to the top of him, and it showed, and that's why he was a Hall of Fame player. Chandler Rivers is a guy that can play a lot of different schemes, can play the zone, can play the man. isn't the longest limb guy, but he is a dog and he plays much bigger than his size. So again, the feet and the hips and the eyes and the hands, they're all in coordination with each other. Very, very smooth athlete. You don't see 6'1" guys that move like him very, very often. And he's a 5'10" guy, and that's why he moves the way that he does. So again, but he puts his head in there and he puts his body in there like he's a 200-pound guy. So again, the way that he plays that's why I'm very, very high on him going forward. Somebody's going to get the steal of the draft for me at the cornerback position. Chandler Rivers today. Keontae Scott's very, very similar in that. And then, Jermon McCoy, when he gets healthy, it's very obvious with the grades that he's going to be a very, very good player for a team going forward. Skylar Bell's, like I said, another guy that I like. So again, from the Blue Chip Podcast, I appreciate you guys checking out the episode, man. This is the time of the year where all the work comes together. It's just the most exciting part of the year. A lot of guys are living their dreams, like I said, man. So it's a lot of blessings going around this day, but the work is just beginning for these guys because now it's their job, and now you really, really get to see how they're excel when this is what they do full time, no school and just things like that, and just this is their livelihood and their dream coming together, man. So I wish all these guys the best. A lot of excitement coming today. Let's see what we do from the Commanders and everything like that. Well, I'm excited with what we've done so far, and I'm just looking to continue to build on the ball players in this room. And from the Blue Chip Podcast, man, have a blessed week and enjoy the draft. Peace.